You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List online. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. The interview subject I have coming up for you is another one from Perth, Western Australia. Another great musician from out west. His name is Dave Williams. His group is called Indigo. The reason for the chat with Dave is because the group have released a new single called Everybody Knows. Let's hear what he has to say. Here we go. Give you much background on what it is that I do and the sort of show that I host?
Yeah, I had a bit of a squiz.
Sweet. Okay. Did you like any of the artists that I've interviewed?
I liked a few of them. I can't remember the latest one you did last week.
Nick Barker from Cradle of Filth. Yeah, Nick Barker from
Cradle
of Filth might have been. Yeah, he's I'm an old school metalhead, so all those guys from the 90s that were in bands that I loved. Oh yeah, what do you like? What were your favourite bands?
Oh, I was a classic old school Metallica Die Hard. That's where I was learning my guitar as a 13 and 14-year-old.
Yes, we all went through that phase. Yeah, it's funny though, a lot of people never drop it. They stay sort of wedded to Metallica like as if it's a cult.
Yeah, I wasn't quite that bad. I just think they've got such good riffs to learn if you want to learn how to play guitar.
Yeah, I agree. They're basically the entry point, aren't they? Meaning that they're the first band that's genuinely no bullshit heavy metal if you go back to their first 3 or 4 albums. Everything after that's garbage.
Yeah, they just right.
But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it
makes you feel like you're a good guitarist a lot sooner than what you actually are.
Yeah. I mean, it's all down picking too, isn't it? So as long as you get that technique sorted, I'm not saying it's easy, but once you get the technique sorted, you can pretty much play Master of Puppets after a couple of weeks.
Exactly.
You know, so but look, I have had a listen to Indigo's the single. So Lee sent it through to me. It's called Everybody Knows. And it sounds to me as though the band have been listening to Heroes by David Bowie, because I could definitely get that vibe coming through. But the cut is a bit different to some of your other work because it uses these minor scales and it's got a killer driving beat. A bit different to one of your other songs. There was a song called La Luna that I heard that has minor scales and a driving beat. So I was comparing it to that one there. But the bio also says that you guys wrote Everybody Knows quickly. So you must have been inspired some way. So what can you tell me about the song?
We wrote this song, Dylan, the guitarist in our band, his dad had a bonfire up at his property in North Dandalup, and it was like up in the hills, the fire was burning, and then we just like set up a jam session in his big shed. And Chris just started playing with the Everybody Knows and was like making up on the spot. And then we wrote the song in about like probably 5 minutes and then just played it for about an hour straight, which everyone at the bonfire was getting a bit sick of it by then. But we finally got the song down.
Sweet. Okay. And look, you've got a bit of material out there if the catalogue on iTunes is correct. So you've got the self-titled EP from 2016. And I stumbled over the EP from 2017, which of course I'm going to mispronounce, but I'll give it a go anyway, which is Kumiho, I believe. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, pretty close. It's Kumiho, yeah.
Kumiho, there you go. All right. And I found that I kept on coming back to this one track, which is Allure, because I love the Hawaiian slide guitar and the aesthetics that you guys have threaded across the track there. And there's also a bunch of other singles on there as well. So you do have quite a lot of material for people to wrap their ears around. And look, I've long thought that the album itself, so crafting 8 or 9, 10 songs on a collection could be a dead concept for indie bands. And it seems like you guys might agree with me because you've gone the EP route twice and you've also got a bunch of singles out there. So do you agree with me on that point, that it's better for an indie band to release EPs the way that you guys have done it?
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. We have opted out of doing an album, just because it's not really worth your while. People, most of the time, they're listening to your music on streaming services, and they'll just pick the one song that they like the most and add it to their playlist. I think the majority of music consumers listen to one or two songs of the album, and then that's it. So, apart from that, there are obviously some people, old school music fans, that'll get around watching or listening to a full album, start to finish. I love doing that, but it's just not worth it until you build enough traction.
Agree, absolutely. Actually, that's why I was impressed that you guys had come up with the strategy yourselves, and I simply don't understand why young bands, or indie bands more specifically, in this day and age of Apple Music and also Spotify, especially Spotify, the Spotify playlist is the new album these days. It's just the way people are consuming music. Why people put so much effort into putting albums together, because, look, personally, I do love albums. I tend to want to listen to... I do a lot of walking and a lot of just going around in the car, so I actually enjoy listening to albums, but I'm 42 years of age, and I came from an era where we bought CDs, cassettes first and then CDs. But people these days, and it's not just about the youth and younger people, Generation Y or Z or millennials or whatever the term is these days for younger people, it's just everybody, because that's the way Apple CarPlay is set up in cars, and the opportunity, I think, to release singles and then be associated with, say, bands like Coldplay and the like. So I think one of the best situations for you guys potentially could be that there is a Spotify playlist put together and insert band that sounds like Coldplay or The Weeknd here. You know what I'm saying? And you guys are on that same playlist. I mean, that'd go great business for you guys.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate that. I think getting yourself on those playlists that are run by some of those companies is a massive thing. And having songs that are good in their own right, and just trying to get this, product out where you're going, this song is an individual thing. We're still trying to find the sound that works best for us and the sound that more people resonate with. And we feel really strongly that every song we release, it's, getting better and better. We've got heaps of creative energy after this tough year, which is good. We're jamming more and more than ever, and now just writing more music to, try and fit into some of those playlists and write some music that makes people feel something.
Make people feel something. That's a very good point. And I think you guys do a great job of that so far, certainly from the few listens that I've already had. But that's obviously a strategy that you've got, isn't it? You actually want to elicit an emotional response out of the listener.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that we feel very strongly about when it comes to writing music and releasing art is that I think or at least for me, it kind of has to have a narrative behind what you're doing. Mm-hmm. There has to be a reason for it. You have to be saying something. Or at least that's the art that makes me really feel, emotions. And so, take Everybody Knows, for example. We wrote that a long time ago and put it away for so long. We've been working on it for 3 or 4 years. And then all of the ignorance out of this year because of misinformation and COVID this and all that stuff, finally the lyrics really made sense, where there was a narrative for it now that we can apply to that, even though we wrote it about similar topics. It really is quite fitting for this year. So when we revisited it at the start of the year, we were talking about how easy it is to fall into your own patterns of thinking when it comes to social media, because you have these echo chambers, and it's creating this world where everyone's views are getting affirmed and reaffirmed every time they look on Facebook or Instagram. And you get these really strong opinions that don't have any actual evidence behind, and it's quite scary. So, in the end, we don't really know anything, and we're always trying our best. So,
you're a smart fella.
Difficult topic.
You've just said exactly what I'm thinking about things. And look, I've just graduated from uni, and I did one of my papers on echo chambers, and they are disastrous.
Oh wow!
Yeah, to say the least. And
they are.
You just find that people, they get into these bloody things. They seem to have all of the time in the world on their hands, and the way that YouTube, so all Google, all Facebook, all Twitter algorithms are set up, no matter what type of an account you've got. What I mean by that is that if you keep searching out the same type of information, it'll keep giving you that. So I think people have to stop blaming social media, get a bit more educated on how social media works, i.e. the algorithm that keeps on bringing them the same shit that they've looked at now for God knows how long.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a toxic Olympics. Let's see how vulgar my opinion can possibly become, and how there's the rise of these neo-Marxists. I don't know how much history people need to read before they have some sort of a takeaway that this slide into advocating for socialism and communism, both murderous regimes, is as bad as the same thing that these so-called anti-fascists are protesting against. You can't go from one side to the other side and just totally ignore that there's a middle ground and say, yeah, we have the solution, it's over here, because guess what, you're a Nazi. And a Nazi, calling somebody a Nazi or calling somebody a racist, and all of the usual things that people call people when they want them to shut up, which is fascist, which is really what that's about, limiting people's speech. Yeah. It's at first, years ago, 5 or 6 years ago when it started, I thought, well, this is just kids, these are just children doing it. But then you start seeing CEOs of companies doing it. And then you see Nike release a statement around this sort of stuff. And you think, holy shit, are we absolutely living in the manifestation of George Orwell's 1984? Because it certainly fucking feels like it at the moment. And we have it really good in Australia, and I'd love to keep it this way, man. But I do feel for our friends in the United States, and I know it's not bad everywhere. I'm not catastrophizing, but I think that's where it's most, and the UK too, I must say too. A lot of the accounts that are extremely toxic that I've bumped over tend to come from those two places. Yeah.
I think it seems a bit like, I don't know, conspiracy theory in some way, but the Rupert Murdoch media own so much of the media in all of those three countries, UK, US and Australia. And it just feels like having one media company, wherever they sit on the spectrum of who they benefit in terms of, politics, you can't have a media monopoly. That is insane, because, people can be bought out, and then we need our media to be honest and truthful. There needs to be a lot more accountability in terms of what papers are allowed to publish, because misinformation is so powerful, and I think we're finally starting to see how bad it can get.
Well, I think social media had far more of a role than what Rupert Murdoch's media has. The reality is that there's not that many eyes on his mastheads these days. Most of the eyes, meaning most of people's browsing habits, are focused on Facebook, so they might bump over or come across, I should say, the Courier Mail or the Australian, so the Rupert's papers in Australia. There's plenty of them, of course, but that's just two. But by and large, I think it's definitely social media, and it's when they've not even had to cartel Twitter and Facebook. They've just people's natural tendencies to want to sign up for these things because we are a tribal species apparently, and then form into these groups along these partisan lines. Because you sort of grow up thinking that as people get older, they become a bit more rational and the like. But that's what I was trying to say before, but might not have made the point. Is that I thought it was just young people that were getting involved in this. Some of the most toxic accounts, if the avatar is to be believed, are from people that are pushing well over 60. But they might have led a long life. It does. It shocks the shit out of me, man. I think, haven't you had kids? Haven't you learnt to be a bit moderate? That, we all know life is, you're obviously a lot younger than me, but life is tough because life is long,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of things that happen between when you graduate from high school and then you get married and then you potentially have kids. You couple up anyway if you don't get married. You know what I'm saying? But man, it's you got about
yeah,
60
yeah,
odd years
absolutely.
there where you got to figure out what you're going to do with your life, and for people to go onto social media and to use it to vent, and especially vent about politics. Sometimes, man, I shake my head
Yeah,
at how much education people have got about, So just for a moment, you step back and go, it's so toxic. Even if you're right, can't you?
yeah,
And you're making your point this way, using this toxic methodology, these toxic
yeah,
words, and you're accusing the other side of being a
yeah.
fascist or what have you. Like, do you honestly think that someone is going to stop and go, hang on, you're right, I'm a fascist, I'm going to stop what I'm doing? Like, you're just
Yeah,
pissing in the
yeah, no
wind.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's inflammatory. Yeah,
yeah,
no matter what. I
it's
used to be so bad for it.
yeah. We used to do it yourself, did you? You used
I
to
would
go
spend,
on.
yeah, I'd finish work or like be procrastinating at uni doing assignment, and I would get caught up for hours just replying to people, try and get them to see a different perspective, or giving them facts if they're claiming things that don't have facts and showing them.
Mm.
And it's just not good for me. Hey, I can't do it. Like, I got to this point, I was like, this is stressing me out. I can't put any more energy into this. This is like sucking me dry. It's no good.
You figured it out then, yeah, because you can't keep on doing it, no matter who you are. I used to think it was if you were too sensitive or you were too aware of the world because you were widely read, you probably shouldn't do that, just from a mental health perspective, your own. But you figured out,
Yeah,
I think, that you can't really do it at all, and the people that are doing it, look, I'm not making any baseless accusations here, but certainly I haven't had any interactions with people this way because I simply don't do it. I'm old enough. Well, it's not about old age, sorry, I should say. It's about I'm just self-aware enough to know that I just don't want to get involved in that sort of shit. Plus, I don't actually want to argue or with anybody about their opinion, and I don't want to express my opinion online that way. Anyway, God knows I do it enough in this format here.
yeah,
But that's because it's my show, and fuck it, I can say whatever I want, But
mm,
I'm not shit posting.
absolutely.
I'm not trolling anybody, and I'm never shit posted. So
Yeah,
yeah, I just like to see people sort of get out of this left-right paradigm that they think that the world exists in, this binary equation, politically binary,
yeah,
that it seems to be down, you're either left wing or right wing or what have you, and it's like, you can actually have your own opinion on things. You don't have to be an ideologue,
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, mate, it's very interesting times. I'll make this my final question for you, okay? And you may have already answered it, but it's
Yeah,
a good one because I've got 3 interviews tonight, and I'm planning on asking it in each of them. So you're first cab off the rank. So here we go, okay? 2020 will
alrighty, go for
two,
it.
2020 will be remembered for a lot of things, okay? That have affected just about every person. This one main thing, this pandemic that has affected everybody all across the world. But what about you personally? What things in your life do you think will change moving forward?
I think, um, I think international travel may change. Um, I don't think that worries me that much. In terms of the things that will change the most in my life is, probably travel internationally a bit less than I intended. I really wanted to travel next year. But now I'm thinking WA is pretty good. We've got it really lucky, and we have such a, wild landscape from north to south here. So, I might do a bit of driving around. And in terms of, work life and band life, um, I think playing music will be pretty difficult moving forward. I think festivals may be a thing of the past for a little while, hoping that we can find ways to make it work. But I think how they've been running so far is too risky still. And if we had any community transmission around those areas, it's just too risky. So as a musician, things do feel pretty tough with, only being able to sell limited capacity tickets to shows and that kind of thing. But there is hope around the corner, of course, because the vaccine's coming around, and we have no idea how that's going to go. But at least it's something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good take, good perspective on things. I too, I love the international travel, but yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to be doing any of that any time in the near future. But yeah, being able to get together for the sake of festivals and gigs, especially with Sydney going in the lockdown again, it's you got to feel for the places that there's these huge cities in Australia where it keeps happening. But it is what it is, mate. Until there's a vaccine and it gets rolled out and it proves to be effective, I think that's it. We've just got to keep, whether we got to or whether we keep doing it or not is two different things, but I think we'll keep doing it. Meaning going into lockdowns and there'll be more social distancing stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Mate, thanks very much for the chat. Good killer conversation. What I'll do from here is I just share it pretty much as it is. I'll do a bit of an introduction and put an outro on it, but I might clean up the beginning of it so as though
sorry
don't
about
include
that, man. I literally had no idea what was going on, and then it occurred to me. I was like, whoa.
No, it's all good. But no, look, killer conversation. Thanks for sharing your view. It's always great when people do that rather than say, I don't really want to do that, So, I think if you stand within your own truth, man, there's never any dramas, and you've done that. So thanks very much for the chat.
Exactly. No problem. It was an absolute pleasure. Talk soon.
No worries, mate, for sure. Catch ya. That's it. Show's over. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. And I'm the host of the show, Scars and Guitars. It's not over completely, by the way, just this particular episode. You just tuned in to hear Dave Williams from the Western Australian-based outfit Indigo. Thanks for listening.